to another episode of the Preparedness Podcast, the podcast that brings you the very best in preparedness information. My name is Rob Hannes, and I will be the host for the podcast. You can reach us online at thepreparednesspodcast.com. You can also email me directly at rob@prepcast.info. I like to stress the .info part of the email address because it's different than most .coms that most domains use. When I first started the podcast, I had gotten 3 domains thinking I'd use one for the podcast, one for a forum, and one for a blog. And it turns out that there really is no need for 3 websites. It's a lot to manage all 3 types of websites, especially when you're pretty much putting out the same information. So when I rebooted the podcast, I decided to just consolidate. I got rid of, actually I didn't get rid of, I still have them, but I basically shut down and redirected the preparednessblog.com and prepcast.info to thepreparednesspodcast.com. Made a lot more sense, but now what I've done is I've made it so I have to pay 3 times the price for a domain every year, just simply because I had done that. But hey, you live and learn. Today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about influenza. It's a very popular topic in the media right now, and there's no better time to talk about it when the awareness is up. And this wasn't the topic I was planning on doing, but I think that we should probably go ahead and handle it because, like I said, it's very popular. So the awareness is up, people will be looking for this information, and I'd like to get it out there. Okay, but before we jump into this topic, I want to talk about the sponsor for the podcast, and that is seedsnow.com. This is the middle of January, and for those of you who are looking to put in a garden, you should be giving some serious thought to what you're going to grow this year. And if you're going to grow from seed, which I know a lot of you do, now's the time to start making your order and getting ready for your garden. And a lot of times you want to start your sprouts now. You want to plant those seeds indoors so you can get some seedlings ready for when the last frost is over. You can get those in the ground. Seedsnow.com has an amazing amount of seeds. They have what they call seed banks, which are grouped seeds. So if you want herbal medicine, or if you want sprouts, or if you want tomatoes, or any number of these seed banks, you can just buy the seed bank. You can buy individual seeds. It's a great place to go and find all the different stuff that you can grow in your area. Plus, they have this thing called Find Seeds by Personality. The way to get there is when you go to seedsnow.com, click through or scroll through the main imagery that's right up there, and it'll say Find Seeds by Personality. And when you go there, you can look at what they call the personality icon. It's got so they've got it broken up into basically things that are super easy to grow, things that grow well in containers, things that grow well using raised beds, full sun, part sun, cooler climates, hotter climates, and several other types there. That when you go to seedsnow.com, you get ready to buy, make sure you use the coupon code PREP10. That's PREP10 for an additional 10% discount. That's seedsnow.com. All right, so let's get into the virus. Now, the first virus I want to talk about actually isn't a biological virus. It is a computer virus. Homeland Security actually came out and is recommending that people disable Java in their web browsers. There's a bug or a virus going around. It's an exploit. The exploit is pretty severe, and it's through Java. And Apple and Mozilla are actually taking steps to block this themselves in their operating systems or the web browser. In the case of Mozilla, it would be Firefox. However, don't wait for them to do it. You should do it yourself. Google how to disable Java in the browser that you're using and get it disabled, deactivated. You don't need it. Now, if you do need it, go ahead and turn it on. But otherwise, honestly, you should just go ahead and leave it disabled all the time. I leave mine disabled all the time. If I run something like GoToMeeting, I'll turn it on for that session, and when I'm done, I'll turn it off again. And I think that's the safest way to be. If you're not familiar with what Java is, It is a cross-platform operating system that allows you to run the same code in Mac or PC or Linux or Unix or whatever. And it's handy because developers can write software once and then deploy it on multiple platforms without having to take the time to rewrite it for whatever the most optimum coding is for that platform. It's certainly not as good as anything that's natively developed for a computer system, but it's gotten much better over the past few years. Now, the difference here is that you can run Java on your system for any programs that use Java. It's the Java running within your web browser that is the security risk. So that's why you need to disable it in the browser. You don't need to disable it on your computer, but you do need to disable it for all browsers that use it. You know, if you use Firefox and Safari and Internet Explorer and, you know, whatever else is out there, Chrome, I suppose, you should disable it on all of them just to be safe. I'll have a link in the show notes to one of the many articles that's out there if you want to check more about why this is important to do. Now, the other virus that we're going to talk about is the influenza virus. The flu seems to be getting pretty bad. So is it really, or are we just overreacting? Right now, many cities are declaring a flu emergency, and some are even calling it a flu epidemic. Now, to be sure, the flu is nothing to sneeze at. It kills people every season. Before getting into some of this, let's go ahead and outline some facts for a little perspective on this. And to do that, I'm going to tell you a little story about sharks. 8 or 10 years ago, there was a lot of people scared to death that sharks were going crazy and attacking people more than ever. We started hearing about the shark attacks from all over the world, and particularly around the United States. Many people started to wonder if this was caused by some sort of earth change, and many people were too scared to go into the ocean. Go to the beach for vacation or whatever. They would not get in the water. Now, in reality, there were less shark attacks that year than normal, or the normal average. And the reason for the panic was due to all the media attention about shark attacks. Now think about it. There are about 100 shark attacks every year. How many of those do you hear about? I would venture to say less than 10. This particular year, and I don't remember what year it was, but it was, like I said, 8 or 10 years ago. In this particular year, there was a shark attack that caught the media's eye, and I think there was another one that somehow also was pushed into national attention, and that kind of snowballed, and all the journalists and all the media were just waiting, and anytime there was one, they would just, another shark attack, and they just hyped it up a lot. The truth was that there were less shark attacks than normal, but everybody was scared to death because they thought that all these sharks were going on a feeding frenzy and just attacking everything that entered the water. That was clearly not the case. Now, my point here is that just because everybody is talking about it, it doesn't mean that it's newsworthy. So, do you know how many people die from the flu every year? The truth is that nobody knows how many people die every year from the flu, and that includes the CDC. You're probably asking yourself, how can this happen? How is that possible? I'll put the link in the show notes. It is on the CDC website about flu and U.S. flu-related deaths, and it talks about this. The CDC estimates that in the 1976-77 season to the 2006-2007 flu season, and I think that's about 31 years, something like that, deaths from flu range from a low of about 3,000 per year to a high of about 49,000 people per year. The reason we don't know is that tracking the real flu deaths are difficult, and this is for several reasons. These reasons include no requirement for states to report flu deaths. Also, it's difficult to find out or to know who actually died from the flu because the flu can bring on many secondary conditions, such as pneumonia. So many times we don't know what killed the person. They may have had influenza, and the way the system just works is that the reports aren't filed for who died of what when it's flu related. So we don't always have good numbers. 36,000 annual flu deaths is the statistic that's often used. And that's because in 2003, there was a study released from the CDC, and this number was calculated as an average in their statistical modeling technique that they used to study the flu from 1990 to 1999. This is the same modeling technique that they use now. It's just that when they studied this decade, they found that the range, and they used it as an average. And they said, well, the average is 36,000 flu deaths per year. But that's not it doesn't mean that every year 36,000 people die. We already know that it can be as low as 3,000 to about 49,000, and that's the average death range for the 31 years that they studied in like 1976 to 2007. So when you have a wide range like that, 3,000 to 49,000, the media doesn't like to use numbers like that because it takes too long to say, it takes too much valuable airspace in their time that they have to report the news. It's a tongue twister. They like averages. They like neat things. So they latched on to the 36,000 deaths from the flu every year, and that's what they use. Even though from the range, you can tell it's widely inaccurate. It could be about there. It could be far less. It could be far more. The important thing to take away from this is that, one, the CDC doesn't keep numbers on actual deaths caused by the flu, and two, it's not unusual for there to be upwards of 50,000 deaths from flu in a given year. Back in the 2009-2010 winter season, we had a pandemic scare. Now, that was only a couple years ago. You probably remember the flu strain at the time went global. It was infecting a lot of people. However, we were very lucky that it had a very low mortality rate. It could have been a lot worse. So we do know that pandemics still can happen. Not that logically we would assume that they can't happen, but we humans, or at least we Americans, we have a very, very short memory. And if something hasn't happened recently or ever, as far as we can remember, then it's not possible. And so it's very important to keep in mind that these things do happen. Now, the key issue with flu is how fast the virus is spreading, how fast it can kill, who it kills, and how many it's killed so far. Those are the important things to remember when you're looking at a flu epidemic or pandemic or the spread of flu. Now, who it kills is important because typically influenza affects seniors and small children the most due to either a compromised or underdeveloped immunity system. When a flu virus starts killing people in this in-between range, between really old and really young, that's when we start to get concerned, or at least more concerned, because these people have stronger immune systems and usually can fight off the average yearly flu. This is a cause for concern because that type of virus is distinctly different from your typical flu virus. Speaking of the pandemic of 2009, do you remember how much the media mocked the CDC and the WHO because of their warnings about the pandemic? Now, I've got a link here in the show notes that goes to cdc.gov/flu/weekly. It's a simple link, so I went ahead and told you. But if you look at that page, it's the CDC's seasonal flu page. You're going to notice there's a lot of graphs on there. Some of them go back as far as 2009. What I find interesting is that there were more deaths, and the transmission rate and the number of people infected and stuff was far greater than we have right now. But yet, The media is screaming, and so are some of the state governments, like City of New York, the State of New York. They're just screaming that it's an epidemic. It's an epidemic. Okay, let's take a look at a couple news sources and find out what's going on around the country right now. This first one, I got this report through the RSOE news alert email that I get, and link in the show notes if you want to subscribe to this or check them out. And I quote, and this is talking about New York, with about 20,000 cases of the flu reported in the state so far, Governor Andrew Cuomo declared a public health emergency in New York. The state health department says the number of people admitted to hospitals with confirmed cases of the flu jumped 55% last week. 2 children have died. As of January 5th, DOH has received reports of 2,884 patients hospitalized with laboratory-confirmed influenza, compared to the 1,169 total hospitalizations in 2011. Officials say the number of cases is likely to climb because the flu is highly contagious and victims can still spread it even after they begin to feel better. End quote. Wow, that sure seems like a dire situation, doesn't it? Well, no, not really. Some of these reports that people are talking about are relating to the influenza-like illness, or ILI, which is not really a confirmed case of the flu. In the paragraph above, it talks about confirmed cases, but then it also talks about other aspects of it that they're just making sort of pot-shot analysis. Oh, well, we've got more cases than we have last year, so clearly it's bad. There are almost 19.5 million people in the state of New York. 20,000 flu cases only represents 0.1% of the population. And this is only the number of the people that have the flu. This isn't how many people have died. It's simply a count of how many people have reportedly become sick with influenza. To me, this is not an emergency. That isn't to say we don't have people with the flu. Clearly we do. But I don't think it has reached anywhere close to the proportion or the numbers that we need to see to get bent out of shape about it. So far, it just seems like this flu season is a little bit worse than normal. Keep in mind, it's not unusual to have upwards to 50,000 people die in this country from the flu. We're not approaching anything close to those numbers yet. Let's take a look at another news report. This one is from the BBC. Quote, last week, 7.3% of U.S. deaths were caused by pneumonia and the flu, just above epidemic threshold, says the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. End quote. Wow, there's that epidemic again. We have an epidemic. The CDC has confirmed it's an epidemic. Well, if you go to that seasonal flu page that the CDC maintains, you'll find this quote. Quote, during week 1, which is the first week of 2013, 7.3% of all deaths reported through the 122 cities mortality reporting system were due to P&I, which is pneumonia and influenza. This percentage was slightly above the epidemic threshold of 7.2% for week 1, end quote. Did you catch that? The epidemic threshold is 7.2%, and we're at 7.3%. So again, 0.1% above the threshold, and suddenly everybody's panicking. The media is just going ballistic over this. Now, I don't know why. I cannot figure out why they're harping on this so much. This is not an epidemic. I mean, it may technically be an epidemic, but it's not of such proportion that anybody has to worry any more than usual for any given year where they have flu, which is, every winter season. I don't know why. We have tons of other stuff. We've got the fiscal cliff. We've got the gun issue. We've got all these other politic problems that we have to face that there should have plenty of stuff to talk about on the nightly news. But they want to talk about this. I have no idea why. But I want to bring it to your attention that now is not the time to panic. There's nothing to panic about. Now, I am also not saying that you don't need to worry about the flu. Clearly, the flu is something that you need to be aware of. I mean, as a prepper, you need to be aware of all things and how to be ready for all things. So the flu happens every year. There's steps and techniques that you can do to stay healthy, help keep your kids healthy, and small children and senior citizens are most affected by the flu. The flu is what kills this group of people every year more than the in-between age groups. So it clearly is a problem. It's just not panic run to the hills sort of problem. It's not break out the N95 or N100 face mask and wear them everywhere you go. We're not at that point yet. We weren't even at that point back in the pandemic of 2009. And if you look at those charts and you compare what's going on, you'll see, now you'll have to study them for a bit. It's not as easy as just glancing. But if you look at them and focus on them, you'll see that 2009 was much worse than it is now. And 2009 wasn't even all that bad as far as pandemics go. Certainly, it didn't kill the numbers that we were fearing it might. It just had a very high transmission rate. So, in this next section, I want to talk about what you can do to protect yourself from flu, but really from just getting sick in general. Now, the flu season goes through April. So we're only in the middle of the flu season, and I suppose it could get worse. We don't know. Viruses are tricky things. So it pays to stay informed, keep an eye on this, stay on top of the situation. Just as you monitor the news in case you need to bug out before everybody else, same thing here. You want to watch the indicators, the factors. For example, back in 2009, I was about 3 or 4 days ahead of everybody else in being alerted to a possible pandemic because I subscribed to this RSOE news alert email service, and they had sent out an email, and they had a flu epidemic in Mexico, and they were talking about the conditions of what was happening and stuff, and reading it, I could see is like, oh, this is something that needs to be watched. This can be a problem. High transmission rate, people dying from it. We had people that were dying that weren't, or they were in the middle group. They weren't really young. They were really old. Those are indicators that we may have a possible flu pandemic. And so within a matter of days after getting that email, it hit like wildfire across the globe and the news services and stuff. So this is an example of where I had advance notice because I'm paying attention and I'm watching specific news alert services and getting information so that if this was something I needed to act on soon, I would have had advance notice ahead of the pack or most people. You know, most people would have found out for a few days. Okay, so the very best thing that you can do to protect yourself from the flu and many other diseases and illnesses is to wash your hands thoroughly and frequently. And the way you do this is you lather up and scrub for at least 20 seconds. You can either count 20 seconds using the 1001, 1002, 1003 method, or what we teach our kids is sing the ABC song twice. You know, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Run through that twice. That's about 20 seconds, actually. It might be a little bit longer depending on how slow you sing it, but longer is better. Now, keep in mind that you don't need antibacterial soap. In fact, I think I read a study not that long ago, or reference to a study that basically said the antibacterial soaps don't do any better at getting your hands clean than regular soap. If you wash your hands good and lather them up and really scrub and get that soap in there and rub your fingernails into your palm and kind of in circles to kind of like massage your fingertips to get the soap under there and get the dirt and the grime and the bacteria out from beneath your fingernails, then you've got your hands that are good and clean. In between hand washings, or if you can't get to a sink, use a hand sanitizer. And that hand sanitizer should probably have at least 60% alcohol. I don't know what the common is. I think it's higher than that, maybe 65 or 70, something like that. But they say 60% or higher is what you need to sanitize your hands. Because your hands are only really clean from the time you wash them until you touch something, you should make it a habit not to touch your face, especially your mouth, your eyes, and your nose. At least not until you've washed or sanitized your hands. This probably goes without saying, but stay away from sick people. If somebody is obviously sick, stay a minimum of 6 feet, and 10 feet is better. Avoid touching anything that someone sick has touched, like a keyboard. Now, this is a lot easier to say than it is to do. We have a lot of social norms. We are not the type of people that basically will tell people, hey, you're sniffling, you're coughing, you're sneezing, you don't look that good, stay away from me. But we should. Maybe a little bit nicer than that, but you should be firm and say, look, you know what? You look like you're under the weather. Could you stand over there because I don't want to get sick? You know, we can talk a distance of 6 to 10 feet. It's not a problem. Another issue we have, this is one of the ones that I just went through, is we think, oh, well, they don't seem that sick. Well, I just had this recently at work. It's a small office, and somebody who was obviously sick, but she said it was allergies, so I kind of took her at face value, but I shouldn't have, because, you know, when she comes over to my desk and is leaning in and coughing and breathing on me, guess what? 2 days later, I'm sick. So I should have just said, you know what, why don't you go ahead and just sit over there and we can talk, or why don't you email me or something like that, and we can take care of it that way. You know, be polite about it and stuff, because you know, still have to work with these people, but in this country, we tend to not have the courtesy to stay away when we're sick. And I think that's one of the reasons why we have a higher transmission rate sometimes, is because we don't know not to stay away from other people, and other people don't know to stay away from us. During the winter, we heat our homes, and that dries out the air. So run a humidifier to increase the humidity. Ideally, you want to have it, say, in the 40 to 60% range. Dry air is better for viruses and bacteria and stuff. More humid air, they don't prosper as well. So you want to keep the humidity up. Also, this is good for sore throats and people breathing at night when they're sleeping and stuff. We need to have it more humid than we do typically in the winter. Back off on the alcoholic drinks. When you drink alcohol, you reduce your body's ability to fight infection. Cover your mouth when you cough or sneeze. Either use a tissue or a napkin, or if you don't have any of those, cough or sneeze into the crook of your arm to cover your mouth. This way you're not spreading the germs, but you're also not putting the germs on your hands, so you don't have to go wash your hands right away. It infuriates me when I see people, especially people I have to either work around or work with or be in close contact with, is they'll sneeze or cough into your hands, and then they'll go right back to, you know, using stuff that you're going to have to use later. And this brings up an interesting point. I recently found out that outside of the bathroom, the surface in a work environment that has the most germs is the handle of the microwave oven. So think about it. You go to warm up your food, say something you're going to have to eat with your fingers or whatever, and you're touching that microwave oven, which is the germiest place outside of the bathroom. Another thing you can do is get the proper nutrition before you get sick, because once you're sick, the vitamins and nutrition don't really help your recovery that much. But you want to eat healthy. Regular exercise is good. Get plenty of sleep. Eat healthy, all those things. And, you know, have the people in your family do the same. People come over, encourage them washing their hands or using hand sanitizer. When your kids come home, I mean, in our house, when we come home, the first thing we do is we wash our hands. We've taught our kids that's what they do, and they all know that. And I believe that's one of the reasons why we stay healthier, or as healthy as we do. Not to say that we don't get sick, but I think that's one of the reasons, because when we get home, we wash the germs off from where we've been, and we don't have to deal with that anymore. Now, all of these protection measures also apply to a pandemic killer flu scenario. However, there are some more extreme measures that you would want to consider if we ever were in a pandemic killer flu situation. We're going to cover those in a separate podcast, because I just wanted to talk about your typical flu, what's going on, people calling it an epidemic. I don't want anybody to panic. We're not there yet. Something to watch for sure, but it's definitely not anything close to, you know, what we've been hearing about for the past 5, 6, 7 years. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about is the flu vaccine. Should you get it? Now, I can't tell you whether or not you should get the vaccine. Much like the debate on politics, religion, and guns, everybody seems to have a very militant opinion about this. You need to do what you feel is best. You need to do your own research on this. Personally, I don't get the vaccine. My family doesn't get the vaccine. Many people think the vaccine is a panacea for the flu. It's not. What the vaccine is, in addition to being a lot of gunk that you don't want to put in your body, as far as I'm concerned, but it's a best guess. What they do is they need, I think it's about 6 months of prep time to make a vaccine. So they can't wait for the flu season to start to find out what strain of flu virus is going to be going around. They have to guess, and they guess on basically world patterns of transmission and flus and what's going on in Asia and stuff like that. And they take their best guess, and they come up with a concoction, and they run with that, and that becomes the vaccine. I think on average for any given year, the vaccine only hits its mark about 60%. Some years it's better, some years it's worse. I think very few years they actually come close enough where I would say the flu vaccine was effective. I think the dirty little secret is that it's effective partially for some people, and so that it's kind of like, well, you might as well because it doesn't hurt you. But I don't believe that. I believe that it does hurt you. I don't like the stuff in there, the formaldehyde, the preservative, the DNA, all the garbage that's in there. I don't want it in my body. I don't want it injected in me. Now, if I was a sickly person and I had taken the flu vaccine and I determined that I'd get the flu less when I get it, well, then maybe that's something I would do. But as somebody who doesn't get the flu on a regular basis, I don't need the vaccine. So, again, I can't tell you what to do. This is a very hot topic. It's a personal thing. You need to do your own research, and you need to seek out source of information from reputable sources, not just any old website on the internet. So that's a look into the flu epidemic that we've been hearing in the news, what it probably means, what I think we're really looking at, and how you can look at this better. I would check out the links in the show notes found at the website, and do your own research and see what is really out there. I think that what we're being told is not quite. I think it's just media hype is really what I think it is. Before I go, I just want to hit some points here. The preparedness capability checklist is still underway. I'm not sure if I'm going to hit the end of month target date due to some other things that have come up, but working hard at it. In the meantime, if you're concerned about EMP and how you can prepare for it, I do have the mini guide out at Amazon. If you go to Amazon and search for Preparedness Podcast, you'll find it. You can still sign up for the weekly tips. Go to the preparednesspodcast.com and sign up for the weekly tips and newsletter. The newsletter portion should be starting soon. I will probably start that on February 1st or thereabouts. It's going to be a summary of posts that have come out in the week. They should be going out on Friday. And so this will be one way for you to stay on top of all the news and articles that come out on the site. You can follow us on Facebook.com at Preparedness Podcast or on Twitter as Prepcast. And, of course, if you have any questions or comments, you can email me directly at rob@prepcast.info. I want to thank you for downloading and listening to the podcast. And until next time, enjoy life and be safe.